Okay. Let's see how it is. New set. I got a new set before I get into my thoughts. New set. New set. I finally got the thing up on my behind my couch. I like it. And it's gonna be my new set for a while. I like it. Took me a while to get this done, by the way. I really hope you guys like it because it took me a long time. Hey guys, how is everybody doing? Today, we're going to be talking about one of the worst films I have ever watched in my life. The Crow Wicked
Nice piece of shit.
Prayer. Now, the Crow remake is now playing in theaters. I have already watched it. I watched it this past Friday. I'll get into my thoughts on that when I do my ranking in the next few days. But The Crow Wicked Prayer. Now, shame on me, I guess, but going into this movie, I actually was kind of excited because the last sequel, Salvation, I actually kind of liked. I actually kind of liked the sequel, but shame on me, I guess. I watched that movie and I was like, you know what? Maybe there's a chance that Wicked Prayer could be good. Heard nothing but terrible things on it, heard nothing but bad things on it, but I'm like, well, Salvation was decent. Maybe this one will be decent for me. But I guess the 0% on Rotten Tomatoes wasn't already a fucking sign. And so I put in the movie, and I watch it, and this is one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. Well, with that all out of the way, let's just get into my thoughts on this movie. When I usually talk about movies, or when I usually review a film, I usually try to look for something positive. Even if the movie is terrible or even unwatchable, I always sometimes try to find something redeemable about it. Even the smallest things I try to find redeemable. I have no positives with this movie. So going right to the negatives, The Crow Wicked Prayer. My first negative is Edward Furlong. Edward Furlong. John Connor from Terminator 2 is the Crow in this film. Edward Furlong. I'm going to let you sit on that for a bit. Edward Furlong. Now, I will admit, he is not terrible in the first part of this movie, because in the first part of this movie, I was just like, oh, Edward Furlong, that's not a good casting. But he surprised me in the first half because he was doing decent, showing, kind of having the girlfriend of his lifetime with him, and he actually did decent. And there's something going on that he did something to where he went to jail, and everybody doesn't like him, so they want him to stay clear from everybody, stay clear from this guy's sister or whatever, the girl that he's dating and wants to marry, and all that. So in the beginning, I thought he was doing decent. I thought he was doing a pretty good job, and I was like, you know what? He might be good at when he turns into the Crow. Maybe he'll be good. But all of that faith that I had just punched me in the stomach and said, screw you. Because Edward Furlong, I don't know where his fucks to give went, but after he puts on that makeup, which, by the way, the little red little lines that the Crow has, he used that with a Sharpie pen.
You serious?
Look, I get it. This movie is direct to video, but how low of a fucking budget did you have to use a Sharpie for that? But once he puts on the makeup and when he turns into full Crow, he is terrible. He is the worst Crow I have ever seen. And we don't have very good ones outside of Brandon Lee. There are some decent ones, but this guy is terrible. I don't know where he went when he was doing good as a human being, showing off like the little love chemistry going on. He was doing decent, but once he turned into the Crow, he basically just left. I don't know if they didn't pay him enough and he just basically hated the script and he goes, you know what, I don't care anymore, I'm gonna be a shitty actor, this movie's going straight to direct to video, this movie isn't gonna save my career whatsoever, so why should I care, why should I even try? That is basically him throughout this entire film. I don't know where he went, I don't know where his acting went, but he is horrendous. Speaking of a low budget, this movie definitely has that low budget home to video feel because this movie is very cheap and it looks very cheap because acting, set design, production, acting, it's all terrible, and you can tell. But apparently, I did not catch this when I was watching, which, to be fair, I kind of stopped paying attention in the last 10 minutes of the movie. But apparently, when the villain of this movie, I forget that guy's name, but apparently he's is one of his most popular characters is Angel, which I don't know anything about that. But apparently, when he gets killed at the end of this movie, when Edward Furlong stabs him with a rock at the end of the movie, apparently when the actor was breathing, the fake rock prosthetic, every time he was breathing, the rock prosthetic would move along with him. Apparently, people noticed that, but I didn't notice that, which, to be fair, again, I kind of stopped paying attention to the last 10 minutes of this movie because I was miserable and I just wanted it to end. But I didn't notice that, but if I didn't notice that, but other people did, that just tells you how low of a budget this movie had and how terrible this movie is. Dude, Salvation looked like it had a full theatrical run compared to this movie because how low of a budget and how cheaply made this movie looks makes Salvation look like a fucking masterpiece for a direct to video movie, which it doesn't even look like that. But this movie, holy shit, you can tell because just watching it, I was just like, wow, 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 wow. Even my dad wasn't even paying attention. He walked in as I was watching the movie and he goes, "Oh, this movie already looks cheaply made." And he just left. He just left the room. He said that and he left. He did not care. Like, he did not want any part of this movie. I don't blame him. And the villains of this movie are very stupid. They are I don't even know how to talk about these people because they are so stupid. They are some of the worst villains I've ever seen in a comic book movie, let alone any movie. And even just as a Crow sequel, they are terrible. And I don't want to compare this to the original because it's going to be kind of impossible not to, but at least the villains in the other movies were somewhat memorable. Some of them had their memorable moments, even of City of Angels. I don't like the villains in those movies, but at least some of them were memorable. Mostly Thomas Jane, because the only thing I can remember from him in City of Angels is that he was jacking off in a booth. At least that's something memorable. I can't tell you one thing about these villains. The only thing I can really tell you about is that the main villain, who was apparently friends with Edward Furlong, apparently he went to jail or whatever, and now he's coming back and he wants to be the fucking Antichrist, which Dennis Hopper apparently gives him that power towards the end of this movie, which is like, what? Why is Dennis Hopper in this movie? Well, at least he knows what movie he's in. He's having a blast of a time. But it's just like, what is going on? And they do it. They did have that like comic book like entrance type thing because like they would show like their name of like different things of like the Antichrist thing or whatever. I didn't catch on to it, and they were like showing us like their name, why they're doing this, basically their height and their weight and all that. They have that cool like Sin City like graphic thing going on. But other than that, there's just nothing. And they apparently also want revenge on Indians, which goes nowhere because in the opening, I remember this. The main villain of this movie, apparently the guy is mostly known as Angel. So I'm just gonna call the main villain Angel because Angel, when he's introduced, a little graphic that shows up, it shows reason for whatever, and it goes revenge for because Indians killed his father or whatever. That seriously goes nowhere. They don't explore it whatsoever. They don't do anything with it. There's something about like a mine shutting down that goes absolutely nowhere, which I will get into. But none of these villains are memorable and none of them have their kings. There's only one villain that was memorable is because one of the villains of this movie, and she's a girl, she's one of the girlfriends from American Pie. That's it. That just tells you how weird these villains are. If one of them is a girlfriend from American Pie. Bravo. And the acting in this movie is absolutely atrocious. It is terrible. It is not, well, not one moment of this movie, not one frame of this film has good acting. Nothing. Not one. Edward Furlong in the beginning, he was decent. I thought he was doing good, like I talked about. but nobody else just seemed like they gave a shit. They basically looked at the script, they knew this movie was going direct to video, and they're like, well, why should we try? And that is it. That is it throughout the entire movie. Nothing. None of this acting is good. None of them is good. If I wouldn't be surprised if this movie won Razzies for worst acting, which it should have. I'm not a fan of Razzies. I hate the fact that's a thing, but this movie deserves all the rewards for that. If I had my own Razzies, this movie would get every reward, whatever, fucking, whatever criterias. Well, what is that called? I don't know. I'm frustrated. I can't even think. The acting is just so bad. And when you get one of the girlfriends from American Pie, you think she might be decent, but at the same time, she was in Sharknado. So, yeah. But it frustrates me because you get so good acting from other films in this franchise. Because now, how bad the acting looks in this movie, the acting in the other two sequels looks brilliant. The acting in those two movies look great in my mind now because of this movie, which I guess made me enjoy the other two more, which I kind of do now because of this fucking terrible movie. But it, I don't know why. I don't know why that makes me so mad. And like I kind of touched upon earlier, and one thing I kind of talked about a little bit earlier, is that whole mining thing going on. There's like this whole thing where there's like this mine shutting down and these people are protesting it. There's like Mexicans being put to work or whatever that doesn't go anywhere. They introduce that in the first frame of this movie. That is the first thing you see in this movie is that, and it goes nowhere. They introduce it and it does jack shit to this story. It doesn't do anything with the movie. They introduce it, the villains come in, they kill a bunch of people, and then they just kind of go on their merry way and they get revenge on Jimmy, and then they meet their end at the very end of the movie. Why is that in the beginning of this movie? Why is that even somewhat part of the story in this movie? I don't know. There's nothing about that fucking subplot about this movie does anything to this film. I don't know. And my final negative, this movie has the wackiest and most random cast I have ever seen for a film, let alone a Crow movie. Let's look at the list, shall we? You've got Edward Furlong. You got post plastic surgery Tara Reid, aka girlfriend from American Pie. Dennis Hopper, for some fucking reason. Danny Trejo. You get the guy from The Matrix, who's the little computer jizz guy. And then you get David Baranza, aka Angel. And you get one of the guys from Shark Tank as a fucking cab driver. And I give up. All in all, guys, I hate this movie. I do not normally say that for a movie, let alone in a sequel, pro movie, whatever. I never say I hate a movie. Even if I don't like a movie, I never say hate. I try to find something redeemable about it. But this movie is just not it. I will never watch this movie ever again. I will never go back to this movie. And I do not have the heart to even look at one more frame of this movie. So get your little history books out because this is the only time where you're going to see me not ever say one positive about a film. But I will say this, there are some people out there saying that this movie kind of crosses the line of so bad that it's good. Not for me. There's not one part of this movie to where I was like, that this movie is just so terrible that it's just funny. Not for me. For someone who loves that original Crow movie and loves the concept of the Crow, and then you get to this movie, which is obviously just a stupid cash grab of a film that just disrespects that original movie, and it absolutely disrespects Brandon Lee's legacy. Because I never thought I would say that about a Crow sequel, which none of the sequels seem like they try to do, but this movie crosses that line to where it disrespects that original movie and disrespects Brandon Lee's legacy, because I fucking despise this movie. I absolutely hate it. I will never watch it again, and I highly recommend to all of you who are a Crow fan, do not even watch this movie, don't even give this movie a shot. Just, if you have a copy of it for some reason, take it out back and burn it or shoot it, whatever you want to do to get rid of it. Do not touch upon this movie whatsoever. But if you're morbidly curious, have at it, because you're going to be sitting through 90 minutes of hell. What did you guys think about The Crow Wicked Prayer? For some reason, do you actually like this movie, or are you like me? You think this is one of the worst movies you've ever seen in your fucking life? But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this movie in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get notified for all my latest videos and my upcoming Crow ranking. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, see you all in the next video.